Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lonnie Spar, and welcome to another Coastal Concerts concert. You probably have heard by now that the program has changed. The harpist was indisposed, so you'll hear just the American String Quartet today doing Beethoven, Ravel, and Dvorak. So they're going to start off with the Beethoven String Quartet, Opus 18, number 2. Now, this was composed in 1800, 1789 to 1800, 1798 to 1800. It was a commission from this man. He commissioned Beethoven to write a set of 6 string quartets. This is number 2 in that set. It was actually the 3rd one that he composed, but when it was published, it was put into the set as number 2. Now, Prince Lobkowitz was a very important patron of Beethoven. In 1808, he and 2 other royals gave Beethoven a yearly pension of 4,000 florins that continued from 1808 until he died in 1827. So how much is 4,000 florins? Well, it was difficult to find out what it was in 1808 money. But in 1863, 1 florin was equivalent of about 10 hours' work. So it was a significant amount, and I think it probably made Beethoven pretty independent at that time. So to Prince Lobkowitz, Beethoven dedicated the 3rd, 5th, and 6th symphonies. These 6 string quartets: String Quartet Opus 74, the Triple Concerto, the Song Cycle Eine die ferne Geliebte, and a birthday cantata. And the prince had a palace. You can see it here. And this palace is still there in Vienna. In the back, you can see this church here. This is somebody give me a clue. St. Stephen's Cathedral, right. And in the hall of this palace, Lobkowitz had a concert hall, and that's where the first performance of Beethoven's Eroica took place. It wasn't a public performance, it was a private performance. Now, as I said, there we go. As I said, this was a set of 6 string quartets. That was a popular set of string quartets in Haydn's day. Haydn wrote 12 sets of 6 quartets. Mozart wrote 2 sets of 6. It was a moneymaker. A publisher could make more money publishing 6 string quartets as a set rather than just one here, one there, one there. So, as I said, it was a very popular form. And these quartets are not as well known. These are the first published quartets that Beethoven wrote. They're not as well known as the later quartets, the Razumovskys, the Opus 130s. Those are much more famous than these. But these are very highly worked against the models of Haydn. I mean, Haydn is we call him the father of the symphony, but he's also the father of the modern string quartet. So these are modeled on Haydn's models. It was funny that Beethoven said, "I never learned anything from Haydn." It was odd. But, I mean, he also dedicated his Opus 2 piano sonatas to Haydn, so it wasn't a contentious thing. But Beethoven never conceded to Haydn Haydn's one wish. That was at the top of a composition by Beethoven that he would say, "Pupil of Haydn." He never did that. He never did it. It's also interesting that the second movement of this piece is not the original one. He was not satisfied with the original one, so he wrote another one, and that's what we usually hear, is this current second movement. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's constructed in a way that we all should know. I mean, we're all now familiar with the sonata allegro form, are we not? Shake your head, yes. Say, yes, Lonnie, we're all right, good. All right. So, I'm not going to throw up that slide again. No, we don't need that. So, like I said, it's typical 19th, 18th century string quartet. Easy to follow. The next piece on the program is the Ravel string quartet. He only ever wrote one. This is Ravel when he was 38 years old. It's, in 1913. He was 38 when this picture was taken. And Ravel belongs to that group of composers, late 19th, early 20th century composers that we call the Impressionists. And usually we think of Ravel and Debussy in the same breath as Impressionists. And it's funny that Ravel said Debussy is an Impressionist. Debussy said, no, I'm not. And he actually hated that name, being called an Impressionist. He didn't like it. But in the Ravel, you hear the types of harmonies that we've come to expect from Debussy, Ravel, this kind of vague harmonies by 19th century standards, chromatic, dissonant, but in a pleasing way. It doesn't affect you the way, say, a piece by Schoenberg does, he was composing at the same time Ravel was. But they're very pleasing, and they always sound somehow right. And there's always resolution. It may not have the typical major chord resolution, but it may. But you always feel a resolution. Ravel was very famous in his lifetime, and he commented that critics' enthusiasm for his compositions were no more important than their earlier judgment, he said, when they called him the most perfect example of insensitivity and lack of emotion. And then Ravel in 1928 made a tour of the United States for 4 months. And in New York, Serge Koussevitzky did an all-Ravel program. And when Ravel came out, the whole audience stood up and applauded. Ravel turned around and said, they don't even do that for me in Paris. If you read about him, he had a very good sense of humor. So this was finished in 1903 when he was 28 years old. The first performance was in 1904. Critics were divided. One said that it offers an incredible resemblance to the music of Debussy. And Ravel described it as the opposite of that of Debussy. He said he's abandoning the vagueness and formlessness of the early French Impressionists and returning to classic standards. In other words, it's constructed exactly as Beethoven would have constructed its 4 movements, and in the sonata allegro form again. So here, let's listen to the first part of the first movement. Now, in our contemporary ears, that doesn't sound exotic at all. In fact, it's very pleasing. But at the time, it was radical. In the London premiere in 1908, The Musical Times found the music chiefly remarkable for vagueness of significance, incoherence, and weird harmonic eccentricities. Times change. And those first few notes also are a germ for everything that you hear subsequently. Those notes are very important. So here's the second theme. So again, it's constructed in the classical form. So now we've heard the first and the second theme. After that comes the development. But I'm not going to play you anything at that. I'm going to let you find it for yourself. Should be able to. And after that comes the recapitulation. And it's easy to hear. Here is the start of the recapitulation. End of the development. So that's the beginning of the recapitulation. So what comes after the recapitulation? Coda. Very good. Next movement is in the form of a scherzo. And it has this form, ABA. You'll hear the first part is repeated. There will be a center section that's contrasting to the A section. And pizzicatos play a very large role in this, especially the A sections. So I'll play a little bit of this, but I want you to pay attention to the rhythm that the violin's playing and the rhythm that the cello is playing. So it's like the cello is playing a different rhythm. He's playing bum 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 bum. Everybody else is playing bum 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 bum. And as we saw last time, it's called hemiola. It's in 6, and you can divide 6 in 2 different ways, with the emphasis on 1 and 4, or 1, 3, and 5. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to play a little game. Now, I'm going to divide everybody right down the middle. And if you're in the middle, if I'm pointing to you, you can go either way. So one side is going to do the first line. The other side is going to do the second line. So what I want you to do is count softly to yourself, but clap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right? Over here, you're doing the first line. So we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good, very good. So you all know what you're going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. All right, now all together. Go. 1, 2. Very good. That's hemiola. That's hemiola. And you hear how it crosses, the rhythms cross. So now, you can do that around the dinner table tonight. Impress your friends at your next party. But a pianist has to do both of those with either hand. One hand has to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The other hand has to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. But that's good. Good, very good. My wife thought you'd never be able to do that. So I'm glad you did. So we're back to the string quartet. So the second section, very languid. So it's interesting how he gets back to the A section from this very languid movement. But what you'll hear is he starts to intersperse pizzicatos into this, and then he's right back into the A section. Now, the third movement, très lent, very slow. It's played much throughout con sordino. That means with a mute. The mute gives it a gossamer, hazy sound. And so this is a violin mute. This is in its simplest form. It's a little clamp that clamps down onto the sound bridge, sound post, to keep the string vibrations from going quickly down through the sound posts into the bottom of the instrument. So it muffles it. There are a lot of different forms of these mutes. Here's another one. It's called a wire mute. It slides back toward the tailpiece on the string, so all the violinist has to do is just pull it up and place it on the bridge. And a lot of times, if you're in the orchestra, you'll see a violinist leaning over to a stand partner and say, "Do you have an extra mute?" It's easy to forget. You might even leave it at home, but a lot of times they just leave it in their case. And sometimes it's a little small wooden one. It's not as big as that, but it's smaller that can slide back and forth toward the tailpiece, so they don't have to pull that one off and put it back on. Sometimes I've even seen them take a dollar bill and roll the dollar bill up and weave it through the strings. If the stand partner doesn't have an extra, they have to do something. Here's an extreme example. I guess it works. Watch in this third movement. Because there's a lot of places where they have to switch it off quick, put it back on. See if you can tell what kind of mute they're using. I doubt you'll see any clothespins. Okay, back to the third movement. And you'll hear reminiscences of that first movement theme that I pointed out. Hear the muted sound. here's the second theme where you can hear those first three notes are from the first movement. Now, if you didn't hear it, here are those first notes again from the first movement. And if you still can't hear it, I've sped up the previous one so you can hear it's more like what we just heard. So you can hear that it's the same three notes that appear. And more instances of that motive here. Very slow. Now, the last movement is in an odd time signature. It's in 5. Usually you think of regular beats as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is in 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And another reoccurrence of that opening. And the coda is a combination of the theme from the second movement and the 5-beat pattern that we just heard in the fourth movement. Now, on a parting note on Ravel, he said to a friend composer in 1928, that I've only written one masterpiece, Bolero. Unfortunately, there's no music in it. If you know Bolero. Antonin Dvorak. This is a picture from 19... Can't read. Can you see it? Good. Oh, I could turn around, yeah. In Prague, Praha, 12th of June, 1897. Notice the date that he died, 1904. He was still alive when Ravel wrote that quartet. And he was born only 14 years after Beethoven died. So we usually think of music history in a that goes in a linear fashion. Well, it doesn't. You know, Ravel was writing a lot of his works, early works, when Dvorak was still writing string quartets, the New World Symphony. So in 1892, Dvorak was probably one of the most famous composers in the world. And he was offered a job by the wife of a millionaire grocery wholesaler in New York to be a director of the National Conservatory of Music in New York City. This is it. It was on 47 West 25th Street. This is what's there now. David's bridal. So he was offered a salary in 1892 of $15,000, equivalent to about $500,000 today. And that was over 10 times the amount that he was getting from the Prague Conservatory. He wasn't particularly happy in New York, but he wrote two of his most famous pieces while he was in the United States, the New World Symphony and the Cello Concerto, and this quartet. And he had a friend in Prague who told him about a Bohemian enclave in Spillville, Iowa, right there. So Dvorak moved there for the summer of one summer, and in 1893. And while he was there, he wrote this quartet, an American Suite, and there's this piece that I found of his. I've never heard a recording of, but you can find the music, the sheet music online. It's called The American Flag. It's a real tub thumper. And it was written to words by an American poet who wrote them in 1815. Dvorak was very much at ease in Spillville. And he wrote to his friend, he says, I've been on vacation since 3 June here in the Czech village of Spillville, and I won't be returning to New York until the latter half of September. The children arrived safely from Europe, and we're all happy together. We like it here very much, and thank God I am working hard, and I'm healthy in good spirits. So that's where he was in Spillville when he wrote this quartet. He didn't give it a subtitle at all. But he did write of the second movement, he said that this is the second composition written in America. The first one was The New World. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to where Dvorak got his themes. Were there any Native American, African American themes in his music that he wrote when he was here? This man, Harry T. Burleigh, was a student at the conservatory when Dvorak was teaching there. And Dvorak's appreciation of this music is documented by Harry Burleigh. He said, I sang Negro songs for him very often, and before he wrote his own themes, he filled himself with the spirit of the old spirituals. And later on, Dvorak said, in Negro melodies of America, I discover all that is needed for a great and noble school of music. Of course, that didn't happen. I think that we're discovering some composers now, long forgotten, too long forgotten, that have come. Florence Price is one that we talked about last time that is starting to come to the fore, and we hear those melodies in her music. This is the manuscript of the last page. He sketched it in 3 days and finished it in another 13, which is astonishing. That's very fast for finishing a work this big. On the bottom, you can see the date, June 10th, 1893, and in Czech it says, finished on June 10th, 1893, thank God. I am content. It was fast. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this piece, you may be a bit disconcerted by the opening theme. There's no pulse to ground you, and it can sound, it's like you can't find where the beat is. So listen to this. Is this piece unfamiliar to anybody? Heard it before? Everybody's heard it before? No? Okay. So the tendency is to hear that first viola note as a pickup note, ba-dum, but it isn't. It's the downbeats. It's ba-dum, ba-bum, ba-dum. Listen to that again and think of it that way. Now, as we hear it more throughout the piece, there will be an underlying rhythm that grounds you. You'll be able to hear it more clearly. But first time I heard it, I said, where's the beat? Couldn't figure it out. Now, the second theme has a definite influence of American song. Now, by the time we get to the end, to the recapitulation, we've heard it enough times that it doesn't throw us off anymore. Right at the very end, there's a motif that's right out of the New World Symphony. Listen, see if you can pick it up. The cello. Play it again. Listen to the cello. Okay, here it is from the New World Symphony. Listen to the violins. Hear it, bum ba ba dum, bum ba ba dum. In fact, this comes in and out of this piece. It's like he must have had an earworm or something. Like it just stuck with him. Now, another he does this funny rhythmic thing again in the third movement. The third movement. Now I can see you nodding your head. Bum ba ba da dee dum bum ba. That's not what's written. That first note is the downbeat. It's not a pickup. It's bum bum ba ba da dum bum bum ba ba da dum. So I can guarantee you'll spend most of the time listening to this third movement on the wrong beat. That's okay. I mean, it's one of those things that once you get it in your head, it's hard to get it out. So don't worry about it. It happens to me too. Now, there was a curious incident that happened while he was writing this movement. There was a bird outside his window. He called it an incessant bird that kept singing and singing. And he asked the locals what the bird was, and they told him it was a scarlet tanager. Recent ornithologists have said no, it's this bird, red-eyed vireo. And he wrote it into the music. So listen to the violin at the top. Okay, here's the red-eyed vireo. Kind of like it, kind of like it. Let's move to the fourth movement. The first theme that we hear permeates the whole work. And toward the end of the movement, we get the birds again. And he finishes off with a typical flourish of a coda. So there you are. And I hope you can hear all the bird calls and all the hemiolas today. Don't clap. Don't clap. So thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed it.